Good afternoon. Welcome to the Tools of the Trade live demo webinar featuring the Fluke Biomedical DPM5 Digital Pressure Meter. This webinar is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. Presenter Jamie Spragus, CBET, a technical sales engineer with Fluke Biomedical, will demo the DPM5 Digital Pressure Meter today for us. It is a modern all-in-one solution designed to deliver efficiency, accuracy, and reliability in medical device pressure testing. Featuring an integrated internal pressure pump, the DPM5 eliminates the need for manual pressure generation, streamlining test workflows and ensuring consistent, repeatable results. Its portable design supports testing across multiple environments without compromising performance. Engineered to meet rigorous industry demands, the DPM5 incorporates a versatile dual-port system that enables accurate measurement of both dry gas and liquid pressures. This flexibility allows users to perform a wide range of test applications using a single instrument. By combining precision measurement, ease of use, and robust functionality, the DPM5 helps organizations improve testing efficiency while maintaining confidence in their pressure verification processes. Thank you to today's sponsor, Fluke Biomedical, a premier global provider of healthcare test and measurement equipment, software, and services. Fluke serves biomedical engineers and quality assurance technicians. For more information, visit flukebiomedical.com. All right, it's one of my favorite times of the day. It's trivia time. That's right, it's time to give away a multi-tool. Today is National Peach Ice Cream Day. Which state is the largest producer of peaches? And I'll give you a hint. My first thought was not correct. So good luck to everyone. And while everyone's sending in their answers, please remember to download the handouts for today's webinar. Those will come in handy. All right, stay tuned to find out who the winner is later on in the webinar. I want to remind everyone that today's presentation is eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI. 1 hour after the end of today's broadcast, you will receive an emailed survey. Completing that survey will grant access to a certificate that you can download and print. We will wrap up today's webinar with a question and answer session. Please note that the webinar dashboard includes a question feature. You can submit your questions for Jamie at any time during the demo. Jamie, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we are super excited to join TechNation and the tools of the trade. I mean, tools are what we do, so we hope everybody loves tools and test instruments as much as we do. I love them. Fluke Biomedical, we love them. We love building them. We love just everything that surrounds tools. But most of all, we wanted to talk about our DPM5. First and foremost, I do want to thank everybody for joining our webinar today. There's probably way more things that you could be doing. I always say probably like your PMs, right? You should be going out doing your PMs. But again, thank everybody for joining. And as always, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. Right there at the end, we'll do a live Q&A. So listen, all of the questions are welcome on the DPM5. So before we get into it, I'd like to ask a question to our audience. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. So we're talking about our DPM5 digital pressure meter. What are you currently testing with a digital pressure meter? Enter it into the chat. We'll give a few minutes. I've got our messages up in the chat while we're waiting for everybody to put their answers in the chat. I'd like to know also, do we have biomed people on a call? Maybe we have some manufacturing on the call. I'd love to know that we got some facilities guys on the call. Again, my dad started out in facilities where he converted into biomed. So again, I've been stomping around hospitals for a long time in the facilities, and I know there's a big use for digital pressure meters as well. So if you could, go ahead, we'll take one more second, put in the chat. What are some of the most common cases, or what are you currently testing with the digital pressure meter?
Jamie, I see some people sharing what they tested on in the questions instead of the chat app. So you might see some people in there.
Okay, let me let's see if I can see it there. So far, I do not see any questions. All right, using your chat feature, if everybody wants to go in there, what are you currently? And this will just give us a little bit of an idea of how people use the pressure meter. We'll move on again. Drop that in the chat as we go through the presentation. But when we were designing our DPM5, we want to talk about the main use cases, right? With Fluke Biomedical, we are customer obsessed. Observations and customers' needs is literally the building blocks of our design process. At Fluke Biomedical, we literally use the team customer obsessed as part of our team. Lizzie, our product manager of the DPM5, she spent countless hours collecting voice of the customer with our research and development team, with our engineering team. So we wanted to find out what are the most common use cases. Where does a new digital pressure meter fit in the market? So we found out that most of the common cases are infusion pumps, right? It does inclusion testing, patient monitor for release testing, leakage testing, your leg pumps out there for pressure generating testing. And then there's a few other examples, anywhere from your blood pressure monitors to your CPAPs, BiPAPs, isoflators, insoflators, syringe pumps, drain pumps, ventilators, anesthesia machines, dialysis machines, and probably much more. Again, as I was sitting down thinking of some of the common uses, what about our facilities guys out there, right? There may be examples of you know, some of our wall suction having to get vacuum testing, or again, any kind of pneumatic testing out there. I know some of the times in my career we used to work on washers, and you want to make a great Friday turn bad, let them call you and tell you the washer's down and you have some kind of pneumatic problem and the door's not letting up. So again, just another common use that you may see for the DPM5. The DPM5 was designed with purpose. We don't just focus on just the digital pressure measurement aspect itself. We wanted to understand more of a macro level problem our customers are facing, right? Where are these little pockets that the DPM5 is used in? And our customers came back and told us they wanted a portable, less cumbersome test device to fit on a busy workbench or to take on the go, right? So being versatile, throw in your bag for field service. Maybe for your OEM guys that are just sitting on the desk and it's out on the way taking this measurement. And then we need an intuitive user interface to reduce the time to train newer technicians. Easy to use, collect those measurements, easy, fast, done. DPM5, it is modernized in medical pressure testing, state of the art. We use precision, portability, and performance. It has an internal pressure pump. Again, it's not something that you have to grab a bulb, or you don't have to use another instrument. The pressure pump is built into the DPM5. You have 6 measurement apps for the most common use cases. Dual port design for dry gases and water. Super cool on the water. Slick, easy design. Again, modern design, 5-inch touch screen. And a lot of our customers ask, well, is it durable? Of course it's durable. With Fluke Biomedical, rugged and reliable test instruments are what we do. Part of our testing, we use a lead ball bearing, and we do a 3-foot drop on the display. Now, some of the people say, hey, Jamie, do you want to do that on yours? No, you're not. You're not going to damage my DPM, but in the event that you drop it, it's very rugged, very reliable. Now let's talk about 2 ports. Here you can see on the left is our high accuracy port, used for non-corrosive gases, and it's also the side that your pressure pump generates your pressure pump. So the apps that generate pressure is going to be on port 1. And here you can see the high accuracy port is from 0 to 1200 millimeters of mercury, or 23 psi. Super accurate specs with 0.2% or 0.5% millimeters of mercury. whichever is greater. And then port 1 has a lure lock connection. Really, really important. Port 1 having a lure lock, port 2 having a quick connect. And what's crazy is in all the years of my medical equipment testing, being in a hospital, you could find lure locks and you could find quick connects everywhere. But when you get out of that hospital setting, no worry, we've got an accessory kit that you can hook everything up to. We've got you covered. You also can store over 4,000 data points. One QA is not built on the instrument, and we get some of the questions of, why is one QA not stored on the instrument? Well, there was a couple of different reasons. One was, probably price, putting that much technology. And secondly, we've noticed, through the voice of the customer, our customers are saying that a digital pressure meter is a great tool to have, but normally doesn't fit in that primary tool category, like an impulse or like your ESA 700 series for electrical safety testing. So we just found the need of having one QA on the instrument, and not really needed for the industry. But with one QA, you can bring that measurement right into it. You can basically take a numeric value, plug it into your one QA procedure, and you're ready to go. So again, there's ways to work in your DPM5 or other instruments with our automation software. Then port 2, that's going to be your wide range port. You also see the blue indication for that's going to do your water as well. So for all your occlusion pump testing, we'll go to port 2. And then your measurement apps, they'll follow the port that you're using, except for your pressure meter. One of the really, really cool features, I think, and is that having that camera thread in the back. I buy a lot of kind of inexpensive camera equipment off of eBay, not eBay, but Amazon or wherever you want to find it, right? A lot of those pieces of equipment mount right up to the DPM. So I've seen some really small tripods that are super cool. You can take the DPM, you can mount it off to the side. I like to take maybe there on the back, I can put a little, almost like a pop socket in there to have it in your hand. So just another really cool, innovative way to bring a feature into a DPM5. Let's take a look at the 6 apps for the measurement apps. First measurement app is our pressure meter. First and foremost, the DPM5 is a pressure meter. Now, when you're using the apps, it will default to the port that you're using, except for your pressure meter app. And again, we'll show you that in our live demo. But if you have a DPM5 and you're going to use it on, you have it on set up for port 2, and you're taking a measurement and you just don't see any measurement, more than likely you just need to mash port 2. But both port 1 and port 2 will take those measurements. The next app we have is your pressure source. This is where, and if you see your pressure source, it'll default to port 1. That's where your pressure source generates from. So you can select your target pressures, or you can select some of our predetermined target pressure values, and then you would hit your start pump. The really cool thing about the pressure source is you don't have to reset the pressure source if you're taking multiple measurements. So if your pressure measurement has 100, 150, and 200 millimeters of mercury or PSI, whatever that unit is, you can start your pump. When it stabilizes, you can stop it, select another temperature, another pressure measurement, and then you can start your pump again, and it'll go up to that pressure measurement, or it'll deflate to that pressure. So you don't have to start and stop. It's built in. And then our ambient temperature basically is your barometer, where you're currently standing, and that is great for some of your ventilator testing. Where you're currently standing at, it gives you your barometric pressure. Our occlusion test, right? You take your infusion pump. You can see when you hit your occlusion test app, it defaults to port 2. You would take your quick connect, you'd run it from your infusion pump. With your infusion pump primed and ready to go, you select your rate, select your volume, and when you start your pump, the DPM5 will occlude your line, and it will calculate your peak pressure and also the time it took to get to that peak pressure. You also have a stop delay. And basically what that stop delay is, how long you wait to see if another peak pressure comes, right? Does that pump make one more revolution and ensures that you don't stop at a local peak rather than a global peak? The default for this is off, but you can always adjust to turn it on. Second app, you have your leak test. When you're leak testing some of those non-invasive monitors and your procedure calls for leak testing, again, you would select your app, select the targeted pressure that your manual could say, anywhere. It could be in millimeters of mercury, it could be PSI, but any of those measurements can be changed. And if you see at the top right-hand corner, it says MMHG, there's a drop down. Any one of those units can be changed. But the leak test, again, you would select your target, and then you would select your duration of how long you want to hold that leak test. And again, the DPM5 will calculate your pressure drop over time and the leak rate. So just really, really crafty way to do leak testing. No more, a lot of people, we were talking to some students at Amy, and they were saying this could have been they were doing a project where they were calculating a lot of these measurements by themselves. And they were saying, oh man, this is a great instrument that we could have used to remove those calculations. So again, when you're doing the leak test, part of our engineering team is really, really proud of that. It will calculate your pressure drop and your leak rate. And then last, you got your pressure relief test. Probably my favorite test of all. If your non-invasive monitor requires a pressure relief test, here again, default support 1. You select your target, and the target is the target that it's going to pump up to. Now that valve is supposed to trip prior to that target pressure. What's really cool about the pressure relief test is that if the valve does not trip, the DPM5 will register that. So it'll give you a valve tripped no indication. You could store that measurement and you could run it again. If possibly you have a default pressure relief valve in your monitor, you could test it multiple times. But if the valve does trip, it'll give you a yes in the valve tripped, and it'll also give you a peak pressure at which that valve tripped in your monitor. So again, just a really, really cool test to add into a digital pressure meter. So what comes with the DPM5? First and foremost, your DPM5, right? You get that instrument ready to go. You get a power supply and AC plugs for our various regions, right? I just visited our APAC region and they have different power. Our EMEA team has different power. So have different power sources that you can use to charge your DPM5. Also charges with a USB-C cable that comes with it. My personal favorite is your tubing kit. It comes with a tubing kit with various tees, various sets of hoses and tubings. It comes with your quick connect and your lure lock. So again, I've always said if you're in a big shop and you're sharing the DPM5, you may want to get a couple of those tubing kits. I've been through probably 4 kits already just because we made up my jigs and they get missing during a show or something like that. But again, I use that tubing kit a lot and I know that the Biomed team will as well. And then you get your carrying case. And then what kind of documentation? You'll get a startup guide, your calibration certificate. Again, most important, getting that calibration certificate. Also in the DPM5, in your about settings, it will also give you your calibration date. So again, part of that quality control documentation that we always like to provide to our customers. And then you get your test station report. So we spoke earlier about 1QA not being on the instrument. So how do you take that information you've been testing all day or you've been testing all week? So you just simply use your USB-C connection, and there's a user-friendly app, and you can take all of that information and push it right onto your PC. Or again, in the DPM app itself, it stores all those measurements. It lets you know what port that you use. It lets you know what test that you use, and it gives you those measurements value in as well. So 2 different ways to extract your data, but this one you can extract it directly from the instrument itself onto your PC, put that data anywhere you wanted. If you wanted to save it into your CMMS, go right ahead. Now for my favorite part of the presentation, let's take a look at the DPM5. And again, after the DPM5, all those questions, let's take a look at some of our questions. So I'm going to go off camera while we watch our demo video. From the home screen, you'll see there's 6 apps. First, look at the pressure meter. We'll select pressure meter, and then here you have the option of port 1 or port 2. Port 1 is for dry, non-corrosive gases and for your pressure pump, and port 2 is for dry gases and liquid. So here we'll select port 2. We'll zero our pressure meter. And then here we can see both positive and negative pressure. If you want to select a different measurement of units, you can go there, and here we have 9 different units of measurements that you can use. At any point, you can store your value, your measurement right here, and now it's stored in the memory of the DPM5. Now, let's look at our pressure source. The DPM5 has a built-in pressure pump. Super cool feature. So here, again, we select our units of measurement, which we'll just keep with millimeters of mercury. And then you can select your targeted pressure that your pump wants to pump up to. Here we have some predetermined values, or you can just type in whatever measurement you're looking for. Well, we'll just use 100, and we'll start our pump. Here we're on pump 1, see port 1, and we'll start our pump. And here you see our pressure pump pumping up to the desired pressure and holding that value. But a really cool feature about the pressure source is that if you were taking more than one measurement, you don't have to restart the test over. You can stop your pump, select a measurement that is higher or lower. Here we'll just go higher, and then we can store that measurement, and then we can start a pump, and now you can see it goes up to the higher value. Stabilizes the pressure. Now it's holding the value. We can store, as always, store your measurement. And then you can stop pump when your testing is over. Now when you reset, that takes your pump back down to 0. Now let's look at the pressure relief test. So here we have a pressure relief test. If you're doing some tests on a piece of equipment that has a relief valve and you're wanting to test it, again, you can select your units of measurement. Here we'll use millimeters of mercury. And then you can select a desired pressure that the relief valve is going to release at. Here we have it set for 200, and we'll start our pump. If the pressure relief valve, again, we're on port 1. If the pressure relief valve trips, then the DPM5 records it and records the peak pressure. If the relief valve does not trip, it records that as well. So here we'll see a So here we can see the valve did not trip. So we'll reset, we'll run that test again, and this time with a trip relief valve. Start test. Now you can see we have the peak pressure and that the valve tripped. We want to store that measurement. Now let's look at the leak test. Again, port 1, here we can simply choose our measurement. We'll set it for PSI. Choose our targeted pressure. Here we'll just keep it at what it is, and then the duration of 1. So the peak pressure calculates both the pressure over time. We'll start our test. And here you see it's pumping up to the desired pressure. It'll hold it for the desired duration for your leak test. And there you go. Now you see the value. So no more calculating on your own. The DPM5, we got you covered. Here we go. We'll stop our test. As always, you can store your measurement. Now, all the measurements that we've stored, we can always go back on your clipboard, and there are all your measurements that you've stored. If you can see here, it gives you your creation date, what port that you used, the test that you were running, and all your measurement value. So that way, if you're documenting any of your tests, it's there in your memory bank, or you can export from the DPM. Now let's look at the occlusion test. I have my infusion pump primed and ready. Here it says we're going to port 2. So let's hook it up on port 2. And while I'm hooking this up, I think it's worth noting, if you accidentally put water in port 1, we've all done it. I've done it. Lizzie's done it. We've all accidentally done it. No big deal. You can always come back. You can unhook your line. You can run your pressure source to a very high value. Start your pump, and that'll blow out a little bit of the water that you've accidentally put in your port 1. So here we have our pump running. Now we'll go to our occlusion test, and we'll start our test. There you can see it's reading the occlusion. Now we've got an occlusion pressure, we've got a peak pressure, and your time. So again, making those calculations for you on an occlusion pump test for your water in port 2. We can store our measurement as always and go back to our home screen. Lastly, we have a barometer. And then we'll look at the settings menu. Here's the settings menu where we have different options for customization, where you have the display, your time and date, your language, and about your DPM5. All right, we got through our demo, and now, as always, I also have the DPM on our live bench, so we'll conduct a live Q&A. But again, put those questions that you may have in the chat feature, and we'll answer them live. But yeah, let's hear those questions about the DPM5.
Thank you, Jamie, thanks, Jamie, for that demo. We do have some questions from attendees, so let's jump right into the Q&A session. The first question we have is, what is the battery life, and can I replace it myself?
Great question. Let me quit sharing my screen. Great question. So We don't really have a battery life per se listed with the DPM. It is a lithium ion battery. It is not field replaceable. So in the event you do run into your battery, you can send it off to our Fluke Biomedical site in Everett. They can do your repair. It's a good little segment for us to say, we also offer Protect Plus on the DPM5. So when you buy the instrument, it covers your calibration, covers any kind of repair that you may need to do. So again, having options out there in the event that your battery tears up, or you actually have something else wrong, or you're needing calibration. Again, annual calibration for anything that requires a measurement out there. So yeah, flukebiomedical.com. But again, the battery's not a field replaceable part. Great question.
Okay, moving right along. Another question we had is, can you measure water pressure?
You can actually measure water pressure with port 2. You can, yeah. Yeah, and the biggest thing there, John, is kind of using your jigs and making sure that you use a jig from your water source. Of course, you're not going to take a water hose and hook it up. But yeah, the jig in a port 2, you absolutely can measure water.
Another
Great
question that we had
question.
come in. Another question we had come in is, can it be used for both pressure and vacuum?
It can be. It can be. Good question. Another good question. Yep. It can be used for both pressure and vacuum, and you could see in the in our demo. So when I push on your syringe, you get that positive pressure, and then when I draw out on that syringe, you get that vacuum as well. So yep, great for all your vacuum. Again, I also thought this is a really, really good tool for all the facilities guys out there if they're having to do vacuum tests on a lot of their on the facilities or anything that's getting vacuum or pneumatics. Some of the OEMs out there, or maybe some guys out in an industrial setting that's doing pneumatic testing. Just a great, great little tool for that as well. Not just for our biomeds, although I'm a biomed and I love our biomeds. But John, I was actually in a survey many, many years ago, and the surveyor said, Jamie, the most important element is the building itself. And I had to agree with him. So again, any kind of testing that vacuum or pressure that you may need from a facility standpoint, along with medical equipment testing, DPM5's got you covered. Good
Fantastic.
question. Let's hear another one.
This question is, calibration certificate is under 17025?
Yes, 17025 calibration for our lab in Everett and also our lab in Hovas, Sweden. Yep. Got the good question. Really good question.
And then what's the difference between using the DPM for testing an infusion pump instead of the IDA6?
Great question. So the infusion pump only is going to do your occlusion pressure, right? It's not gonna give you that rate and that volume that like your IDA6 was or will do, right? The IDA6 is strategically designed for infusion pump testing, but make no mistake, the DPM5 has some great qualities. You can still get a pressure measurement. You can still do your occlusion test. So again, just a great little supplemental tool, but it does not take the place of the IDA6. The IDA6 just can do so much more. Great question, though. Great question.
I think we have some more questions coming in. And then one
Yep.
question we have is, does it work with one QA?
Great question. So it does not work with one QA as far as one QA being on the instrument, but yes, it absolutely will work with one QA. Within our one QA software application, you can build numerical entries for any instrument, right? So if you're doing electrical safety and then that procedure requires you to do some pressure testing, then you can build in a numerical entry for your pressure test value. You also can build in an entry to document the pressure meter. You can bring that serial number into that one QA procedure, again, kind of having everything into that quality control document that everybody would want to turn back into that work order. Great question. Yeah, again, it's just one of those things one QA is not on the instrument, much like our IDA6, much like our ESA 700 series, but those are primary tools, right? You'll use those primarily, where that DPM5, you'll grab it for specific testing. Good questions.
Another question we had is, what's the calibration schedule, or how often does it have to be calibrated?
Well, you know, again, we don't make that recommendation. You probably would refer, but a lot of your regulatory requirements say if the instrument takes a measurement, it requires annual calibration. So again, we want to do an annual calibration on it. Protect Plus or send it back to Fluke Biomedical or one of our distributors. We'll get that calibrated as well. Get your calibration certificate. That calibration date also stays on the instrument itself. So when you're bringing that documentation in, the surveyors love to see the calibration date on the instrument. That's something that we do, and we take pride in doing that. Good question.
And then another question, you mentioned facilities and biomed. What other or what industries are currently using the DPM5 or what kind of professionals will find it beneficial?
Oh, great question. Great question. So, I mean, I really think it's wide open, right? Again, I think there's a need for your facilities guys out there that are doing building maintenance and HVAC if there's some sort of pressure testing. Of course, all the medical equipment and the biomedical engineering profession, right? We've got multi-use for pressure testing. I mean, listen, I've got a couple of buddies of mine that are in like the industrial setting. I guarantee there's great value in pneumatics testing and anything that generates pressure for a line. So, I mean, I just see so many different, you know, uses for the DPM5 across all the sectors, right? From manufacturing to engineering to you name it. Good
Fantastic.
question.
Um, Here's a question. What languages does it support or what languages can you use?
Oh, great question. Let me go off camera and I'm going to do, since we're doing a little bit of a live QA, let's
Are
see
you,
if I can,
there you are.
yeah, it's a little blurry. Give me 1 second. I want to see if I can clean the blur up. Let's see. See if we can get this baby to focus for us. Come on, focus. Oh, man. See if I can move it a little bit.
Do you still have your background blurred?
You're exactly right. I bet you that's what it is. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take that background blur off. Look at there. Here we go. Look at there. So we asked.
Another question we had that you can probably do on the bench as well is like what communication options are there as far as USB, Bluetooth, wireless, etc. And how do you input that into a CMMS or your documents?
Great question. So first, let's talk about the languages. All of your languages are going to be in your settings menu right here. You would go to your language. Then there's all your different options. You've got English, French, Italian, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, probably Chinese and some other Asian, and then maybe this one at the bottom, Polish. Again, just a lot of different, again, because we're a global company, right? We see people all around the world that are using our DPM5. So there are different language settings that you can have. And then secondly, we wanted to talk about what port are you using. So for right now, you're going to use this USB-C. If you notice, there's just an on button and your USB-C. This is where you charge the DPM5, and it's also where you connect it to your PC to download your exports onto your PC. Other than that, that's it. We don't have a Bluetooth option. Kind of one of the things we've seen on Bluetooth can be a little inconsistent, right? So we don't really have a Bluetooth option on that. But again, your communication port would go right here, and then your two ports are right here.
All right.
What other
Another
questions do we
question
have?
we had is what's the maximum pressure limit?
So on port one is 145 psi, which is a lot. And then going back to I'm sorry, port 2, which is our wide range, and then we could go back to our port 1. It's port 1 again, your accuracy is from 0 to 1200 millimeters or up to 23 psi on port 1, and then a pressure reading up to 10 bars, which is 145 pounds of pressure. I will say this, John, on the pressure pump side, it is a very, very robust pressure pump. So I was doing some beta testing, and I brought my little mandrel out. I wrapped and you can see here, I've got kind of how I set it up. I've got my mandrel and I've got it all set up. I ran the pressure up and I started hearing my mandrel crack. So just be careful of your pressure side. It will generate enough pressure to crack some plastic. So just be careful there. Great
That's
questions.
that's good to know. I think
Yeah.
you might have just answered this without intending to answer it, but does it measure in MBAR units? If an
It
organization requires MBAR for reporting, is that available?
It does. It does. And what's crazy, John, I actually had to do the measurement on M bars just because that's a measurement that I wasn't familiar with and being in the biomed sector for so many years. Normally, what we see is millimeters of mercury psi, but yes, M bar equals 145 psi. And again, size of my hand, just a great size of tool. And I wanted to show this feature right here I talked about earlier. I like this feature. It's just a knob that came right off my camera, but I absolutely love this feature. When you're holding it, just give you a little bit better of a grip. And it also, for those of you that have multiple DPM5s in your shop, it lets you know that it's yours. When we go to trade shows, I mean, listen, we take our time unpacking it and making sure everything's right. But when the trade show, everybody throws stuff in boxes, and I always know that this is my DPM awesome because it's got my little knob on the back of it. Great questions. What other questions do we have?
Um, what about temperatures, like very hot climates and very cold climates? Are there anything that users need to be aware of in those
Well, we got
environments?
good question, and we got that. I would not use that on a sterilizer, high pressured steam, or something like that. The tool's just not made for that. Normal pressures that you would get, normal temperatures, yeah, but anything that's high pressure, high temperature, now you'd have to go to another tool.
Right. Sorry, I wasn't very clear. I think they were asking like if you were in Alaska in the winter, or if you were on the equator in the summer, like how does it do in those type of environments?
Good question. Good question. And part of that, we did some testing and with our Latin market, right, and in the highest elevations, we didn't have any problems. We've done testing and a lot of our some of our colder climates, again, just haven't had any pressure there. John, I have dragged my DPM around the world in the past couple of months, and I have just dropped it off of airplanes, dropped it off of seats, and it just keeps working. So again, just really reliable. With my medical, we're always known for our rugged and reliable test instruments. And this one is no exception. Man, great
Uh,
question. We have a great audience out there.
I have another question here, and then I'm going to encourage everyone else to send in their questions. We still have a little bit of time for more questions. If anybody has some, they can send it in using the questions feature, or they can use the chat feature. Either one, I'm checking both. The questions feature is a little text box up towards the top right, and it's a white text box with a question mark in it. So if you have a question, please send it in. The question we have right now is how rapidly or how does the display handle rapid pressure fluctuations?
Um, I I haven't. I can let's demonstrate that. We'll go to pressure. Oh,
You changed
I
it to
changed it.
Spanish.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna figure this out. I mean, here I wanted to show you this. Here I've just got a basic syringe, right? I've got a syringe on the connector just to generate pressure, and I'm pulsing it. I mean, it doesn't get any more rapid than that. We'll go vacuum. I mean, it just very well instantaneous measurements. Again, I'm on port 2. We're on the pressure meter. If for some reason, I say this a lot because this has happened to me 2 or 3 times during a demo, and one of our head development engineers is Hannes. He's got a PhD in protons and neutrons, just a totally PhD awesome dude, right? But when it doesn't work, we all go, Hannes, and he goes, hey Jamie, just go to port 2. So again, I'm on port 1 and I'm generating pressure. And I mean, a lot of people say, oh my God, it's not working. And you're really, see, I generated so much pressure, I blew the hose out. But as my inner Honda would say, hey, Jamie, go to port 2. So there you go, right back to port 2. Now, if you are using your port 1 side, you can do that as well. Again, that's for your non-corrosive gases, your real high accurate port on port 1. Great questions. Let me put this back on English before I get lost. Any more questions?
Yeah, we had a question come in just now. Can the DPM5 be hooked to any kind of compact printer for results to be printed on site?
The answer to that question is no. I don't think that it was designed that way. I think it was designed. I will have to follow up with our product manager, but to my knowledge, no, we've never done that. You just export the file onto your PC and then you could print it from there. But as far as from the instrument itself, no, it only has that USB-C.
And then a question we had is, what is the lead time on ordering a unit? And that might be something more for sales or support. I don't know if you would know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer, but listen, at any point in time, you can reach out to some of our distributors or our awesome inside sales team. We can get you that information. I'm not sure that there is a little bit of a lead time because I'll be honest with you, the product is just flying off the shelf. And so everybody's they love the DPM5 and really a good buzz around it. So not 100% sure on the lead time, but certainly our inside sales can answer that question for you.
Fantastic. And then
John,
another question is, what file formats can you export the data in?
I think it's in Excel. It comes out in Excel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
then
again, you take your Excel, you could save that and put it right into your CMMS. But I also want to show you too. Let me put it here. Here is all of your tests. So when you hit your no matter, and it'll save up to 4,000 instruments, or measurements, right? And it's rhetorical. So when you get to 4,001, the oldest one will fall off, the newest one stays on, right? So you'll always have that information on the instrument itself. It lets you know what port you used. It lets you know the date that you created it. It also gives you your calibration date, and then it gives you your result for the test that you ran. So again, that information is always going to be there. If for some reason you forget to export it and you go on vacation and you come back and you're closing PMs, no big deal. You can grab your DPM5 and those results will be there for you, waiting on you. And John, I want to take 1 second while we get a few more questions. I wanted to show you what the accessory kit looks like. I'm just going to hold this in. So it's going to look very much like this, right? You have all your different connections, comes from hoses and different connections. These guys right here, listen, in a hospital, you can get 100 of them. When you're not in a hospital, these things are expensive, but just this great little kit to use to make all of your jigs. That way, once you make your jig for your DPM5, it's ready to go. Then you just keep up with them and connect and test.
This is a good question. You might have touched on this during the demo. I don't know. What about like upgrades, software upgrades or updates? How is that handled?
Good question. Really good question. So all of your firmware updates will go through your USB-C connection as well. You'll go to our website, flukebiomedical.com. That's where all of our patches and software and firmware updates are. So you can find everything that you need on Fluke Biomedical website. And again, in the event that you need a patch, you just go right to your USB-C port right there.
And then someone just asked, does it work to test the pressure in gas outlets?
Depends on what gas it is. Yep, that you would use port 1 for your non-corrosive gases. Yeah, so you would have to kind of get a sample line coming off whatever gas line you're running, but it will take that measurement.
All right, fantastic. I don't see any more questions right now. If we do get any more questions, we'll make sure we email those to Fluke so they can send an answer. Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with the TechNation community today. I do want to share that the winner of today's trivia question and a multi-tool is Zachary Nelson in Arizona. For everyone who is curious, the correct answer is California.
California.
California is the state that is the largest producer of peaches. I did not know that.
John, I'm a Georgia boy, so I was rooting for Georgia. I'm a Georgia peach myself, so I thought it was Georgia, but California, very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, Georgia was the first thing that popped into my head, and then I know South Carolina has a lot of peaches as well, but the answer is California.
That's very cool. Yeah.
All right, now a quick reminder that you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. That survey will be emailed to the attendees in 1 hour. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI. And you will be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us through email at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Jamie, thank you again, and thank you to all our attendees for their attention today, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, everybody. As always,